Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Mind of Sai Marie. Today's episode is one that speaks straight to the heart of creativity, resilience, and storytelling. I'm honored to be joined by Liisa Kovala, an author whose work explores family history and the power of memory to heal and inspire. Lisa's writing invites us into worlds where personal and collective histories converge, offering both reflection and empowerment. And her journey as an author is not only about crafting stories, but restoring storytelling as a vital force in our lives. So, Lisa, welcome to the show. It's a joy to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. This is lovely.
So, can you share the origin story of your journey into authorship and what first compelled you to write?
Yeah, the journey starts when I'm very little and I love to tell stories and I used to draw stories and have, characters and story arcs in mind and play with my dolls and have stories there. So I think I was always a storyteller and then as I got older and was reading and writing more, I was, writing a lot of little short stories. So it started right from the beginning. I just kind of always knew I was a writer. But, as life happens, I went to school and I wrote a lot in high school and I studied English at university and I became a teacher, got married and had kids. Life just goes on and on. And the storytelling part was still in the back of my mind, but I thought, oh, I'll get to it eventually. But then when I was 40, my mom called and said, hey, somebody wants to write your dad's story. And I told them my daughter's going to do that. And I realized, okay, this is now the time to get serious. And I enrolled in University of Toronto's School of Continuing Studies for their creative writing program and just started interviewing my dad. And the result was a book called Surviving Stutthof about his experiences as a Finnish merchant marine sailor in a concentration camp when he was 16. So since then, I've been really serious about writing, but it's always been there.
Wow, that's an awesome journey. Just everything you've done and that doing that for your dad, what a creative and amazing honor.
Yeah.
I also relate a lot to what you were talking about with playing with your dolls and just knowing you were a storyteller from
Yeah.
childhood. That is so me. Anyhow, moving on to my next question. Your work often explores themes of family resilience and historical memory. How did your personal experiences shape that creative lens?
Well, I think you draw on all kinds of aspects of your own life and the people around you when you're writing. So it's not that it necessarily is, autobiographical or that, you're really basing a character on somebody that but you kind of absorb it all. And then for me it's often looking into historical events that have happened and imagining what it was like for the people in those moments and creating characters to inhabit that world. So, I think that's kind of what I like to explore and family relationships and that sort of inner we call it in Finnish sisu, which is doesn't have an English translation, but is sort of courage and determination, grit. Some people say it's grit, but it's really this internal strength that folks have and it's a resiliency. And I like to think of my characters as needing to find that inner sisu so that they can um, grow and change and transform through the novel and be stronger because of it. So, a lot of different factors come into play when you're creating these worlds.
What was the turning point when you realized storytelling was not just passion, but a vocation?
Yeah, definitely. I would say 2022. I was a teacher and any teacher who was working during COVID knows what that was like. It was not fun. I had lovely students. I had lots of students who came every day online, did the things. That was great. I had lots of kids who just could not deal with that. It was a tough time being online during COVID. And then we kind of got to the other end of that and I had a really great year. I had great students, I had great classes. And in May of 2022, 5 years before I was supposed to retire, I thought, no, I'm done. Like, I'm good. I don't need to go back. I want to just focus on my creativity, on my writing, I eventually found book coaching and I became a book coach. So I know that was kind of the particular moment where I thought, okay, I'm all in on my own things now. I loved being a teacher. I loved my students, but then I was done and I knew I was done. So that was a real turning point for me.
You've cultivated a readership that resonates deeply with your themes. What does that connection look like in practice, and what stories from readers have most moved or inspired you?
Yeah. So a lot of my readers have contacted me over the years when I've written, like especially with my father's book. A lot of people would say to me, I wish I had spoken to my parents about their experiences. I wish I had asked my grandparents about what happened to them. And they recognized how important it is to tell those family stories. So that was one thing that was just beautiful for me, that folks were like, the story resonated for them. It made them think about their own families and their own experiences. And since then, I've been writing historical fiction, but a lot of the same things are happening. Folks are contacting me when they read a novel and say, "Oh, like my grandmother was a Lothesfard, which is the featured character in Sisu's Winter War," or I grew up in the Donovan, which is where like Water for Weary Souls is set, and they recognized, the kinds of things that were happening there. So, that's always thrilling when you have people reach out and tell you like the connection they have to your work. And, often it's surprising to me because I'm not always expecting the things that what resonated with them. And so I think it's kind of a beautiful connection.
That is very rewarding. I think that's probably the best part of being an author.
Yep.
Writing can obviously be both solitary and communal. How do you see technology and digital platforms enhancing the way authors connect with their audiences today?
Yeah. Well, I think I just complained about being, having to do classes on Zoom. And now I can say I love doing classes on Zoom with adult writers as a book coach. And so I feel like technology has given us, and that COVID time too has taught us how we can connect to people all over the world in so many ways. So yes, there's social media. And I think, authors need to, be there and connect with people, but it's, being able to sit with people like yourself on a podcast. It's just lovely. Like you make connections in ways that you don't anticipate. And you can, connect with readers and you can connect with writers. And it's just really lovely that we have this technology to be able to do all of these things. In the past, I would have had to, go to the local library and have a chat there. And I still love to do the in-person things. But now I can have a chat with a local library in, I don't know, in the States or, across the world. And it's just beautiful.
Yes. So, creativity and healing often intersect in your work. How do you see literature functioning as both therapy and empowerment?
I think that when we recognize ourselves in literature, when we see ourselves represented, when we feel like feel seen, like a character is going through something we're going through, that can really be helpful. And possibly, like you say, it could be therapeutic to some extent, or it could be empowering for somebody to live vicariously through those characters in the novel. Like the brain research has said very distinctly that as readers, our brain is actually responding to the words on the page as though we're going through those actions ourselves, which I think is phenomenal. Like we don't actually have to be racing after something or going through it ourselves, but our brain feels like it is going through those things. So we don't actually have to put ourselves in danger to have those experiences. So it's kind of incredible in that way. And as writers, I think it's a way of working through problems and issues and even if I'm thinking about my dad telling his story to me, I think it was therapeutic. He did get more comfortable talking about his own experiences. He had trouble telling me, but then eventually he was able to tell other people, like strangers, about what had happened because he got past that point where it was so, pushed down. So there's lots of benefits, I think, to both writing and to reading that are very positive.
Many emerging authors face barriers in publishing. How do you uplift and amplify their work, and what advice would you share for them?
That's such a great question. So I have a Substack called Women Writing, and every Tuesday I have a podcast episode where I feature women who are doing this hard work of writing, or industry professionals, sometimes literary agents or booksellers, people who can give some insight into the industry, because there's a lot going on beyond just writing your story. So I think that will help new writers and new authors kind of figure out how to navigate publishing and writing. So that's one way. And the other thing that I'm really passionate about is sharing other writers' work with the world, because it is hard to be seen. There's, a lot of us doing this work and there's a lot of noise, and it's hard to kind of be seen. So I like to have women writing features where I interview writers about their experiences, when they write, how they write, what, any advice they have or bad advice they've received. Those are really fun to read. And they're featured, and then they can share something about their latest publications. And I hope that readers will be inspired by those journeys, whether they're readers or writers, but I think a lot of writers enjoy them because they can see themselves in a lot of the experiences of the featured writers. So that's kind of my way of helping other authors in the world, in the literary community, get seen and share their books, because I think that's really important.
I agree with that. What role does storytelling play in shaping cultural memory and collective resilience in your point of view?
Yeah, I think that's really essential. We talk often about how uh, history will repeat itself if we don't pay attention, if we don't kind of understand history. And I think that's true to some extent. I also do worry that history repeats itself anyway. But I think if we keep telling the stories, keep, exposing things that have happened in the past, it might help us remember, okay, this is what human nature is like. This is how other people dealt with it. This is how we need to think about I don't know, resistance or resilience or all of those kinds of things. So we have to keep telling these stories, even though they might be a little bit obscure. Maybe they're things that, readers haven't seen before, and reminding them, right? And I think, like I say, the reader is part of that equation too. It's so important that the reader reads like widely and reads about history and can see our everyday life is not so different from 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. We're still just humans trying to have families and be safe and take care of each other, and there's always those obstacles in the way. So how can we move forward even in those sometimes dire circumstances, depending on the situation?
Sustaining a writing practice takes immense discipline. How do you stay inspired and grounded through challenges?
This is the hardest question because I think a lot of writers struggle with sitting down to write. And I know that I do. And I've never been a person that writes every day. That's just not been part of how my life works. So I always tell people, just, let's dispel that myth that you have to write every day. People who do, that's wonderful. And if you can make that happen and you love that routine, go for it. That's just not my experience. So for me, I love most getting a group of writers together and writing together, whether that's in a coffee shop or on Zoom. And we just sit and we time, 25 minutes and we work, and then we take a quick little break and 25 minutes. And there's something about that, being in a collective or being like mirroring this activity, that keeps you motivated. And for me, that really, really works. So I create opportunities for that kind of writing all the time, both as like with my women writing on Substack. I have a group that does this biweekly. And I also have friends who will just do pop-up writing sessions on any given day and say, okay, let's 2 o'clock, let's pop on Zoom and we'll get working. And it's really powerful. So I suggest people should find a writing community, find a writing buddy. It doesn't need to be a big group. Just 1 or 2 people can be great. You can find a group online and, just make plans to sit together and get it done. Because that is the hardest part, is just sitting down. Once you're sitting down, it's not that bad, but it's getting to the table, right? Getting to your laptop. So that's worked for me and a lot of my writers.
What have been some of the most affirming or surprising moments that you've experienced since publishing your work?
Oh, that's a lovely question. When I first published my father's story, Surviving Stotoff, self-published, and then in 2015, and then it got picked up by a publisher, which is very unusual and was lovely because they took it on. They were able to get it farther afield than I could do on my own. So that was sort of a big surprise for me, is that experience. And then I had another novel published by them. And then this round with Like Water for Rare Souls, I decided to, it had been 10 years since I published the first book on my own. So I decided to do this one on my own too. So every time you make a different decision, there's new things to learn and things have changed. And so I love that, though. I think it's great if folks can. I mean, I'm called a hybrid published author now because, I'm doing all different things, but everything you choose to do, there's something empowering about that. And so I always suggest to writers, keep all your options open. Yes, pitch. Yes, query. Yes, do all those things. Maybe hybrid is for you. Maybe self-publishing is for you. And you don't have to be restrained to any one of those things. So that's been an eye-opening experience for me, is just trying all these different things and then being able to share them with writers as they're going through that process themselves.
How do you hope your writing shifts the way society views creativity, history, and legacy?
That's such a good question. So the writing, I think it's the book coaching that makes me feel like I can help people see creativity differently. and that we are all creative people. We need to honor that. We need to make time for it. I think that's an important thing. I hope that people take that away from my work and my book coaching. But in terms of writing, I'm always talking about that concept of sisu, which I was talking about earlier, because we have this inner strength to do really hard things. And sometimes we have fears, or we fear like success, and we fear failure, and who am I to do this? And we have that inner critic nagging at us all the time. And I think sisu is a great way to counteract that. And I feel like if people could just tap into that part of themselves, then a lot of those issues that keep them from writing or being creative will fall away, and they will just feel more empowered.
So, for listeners who may be struggling with isolation, illness, or creative doubt, what message of hope would you want to share with them?
So that you can absolutely do this thing. Whatever creativity you are exploring, whether it's writing or music or dance or theater, you have to find a way. And I always like the idea of creative people. If you can't find that door to open, then create one. Like, make yourself a space, create an environment for yourself, start a project that involves other people, like be the leader. And you'll be surprised when you take risks, how empowering that is and how people will rally around you. So, don't let that fear or waiting for somebody to give you permission, or waiting for somebody to say, come on in and do this with us. No, like, go ahead and just get her done. Like, go and go and do it. And people will be excited for you, and they will join you, and you can create opportunities. So if you're struggling, like, reach out and find other people who are also creative and want to be part of the process, and you'll lift each other up.
What projects, manuscripts, or expansions are you most excited about right now?
So I have two major projects on the go. I like to have lots of things happening at once, which is a little bit crazy, but that's just how my brain works. I have two more historical novels. One is quote unquote done, and the other one is in a draft stage. So I have those two to work through over the next probably couple years. But I have a cozy mystery series called the Hookah House Cozy Mystery Series, and it comes out this year. I should have 3 books out. March, April, and August, I think. And I'm really excited about those because they have been a real departure from the historical fiction I've been writing, and they've been so much fun, and I just love them so much. So I'm really excited for those projects to be in readers' hands in 2026. But I'll just keep on writing. I just love to have a lot of projects on the go and explore different genres and help lots of writers if I can.
Finally, what do you envision the future of your writing and the communities it touches?
Oh, I love this because I think that's such a beautiful question, in that it's not about us. Like, I know as writers, we sit at our desk and we're working alone, and sometimes it can be very solitary. But really, it's that connection with the reader, and it's the connection with community. And so I just want to see more of the same, that for myself and for the writers that I work with, that they feel brave and have courage to put their work out into the world and reach out to audiences and readers and really make lasting connections, because ultimately that's what we all want, right? It's it goes far beyond, I don't know, like promotion and marketing and selling books. It really goes to creating connections that are authentic with other people, and we all need that right now.
Liisa, thank you for sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your vision with us today. Your work reminds us that storytelling is not only about imagination, it's also about resilience, healing, and legacy. And to our listeners, may you carry forward the inspiration that Liisa has offered, and remember that creativity is a form of empowerment. Until next time, this has been the Mind of Sai Marie.